Hey there, in this video we are working on Unit 3, Lesson 6, and it is the division of whole numbers. Unit 3, Lesson 6. So hopefully you've had some experience dividing whole numbers. We know that multiplication is putting together equal groups. Division is actually the opposite of that. It is separating things into equal parts or equal groups. So that's going to be your first vocabulary word, division. Break apart equal groups. For instance, if I have 4 regular size candy bars, maybe you guys like Snickers. We're just going to call it candy bar or candy. If I have 4 of those, and I know that I'm going to have some friends over after school. Let me finish doing this first. I can't draw candy bars and talk at the same time, and now I'm all thinking about candy bars. All right, if I know I'm going to have some friends over after school, and I know that I have 4 candy bars, let's say there are going to be 3 of us, or 3 people plus me. So I've got 3 friends and myself. So there are going to be 4 people. So I have 4 candy bars. I'm going to divide them between 4 people evenly. Each person is going to get 1 candy bar. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I divide them into 4 groups, I get 1 candy bar in each group. 4 candy bars divided by 4 people means each person gets 1. So we're breaking these apart into equal groups. Now, sometimes, let's say there are 3 people. We're going to do 4 candy bars divided by 3 people. It's tough to see these equal groups. Sometimes we're going to have 1 left over. So we're going to pretend like this one goes back into the cabinet. Everybody gets 1, but we have 1 candy bar that remains after we're through. That means I'll eat it later. All right. So, again, we said that division is the opposite of multiplication. That's called an inverse operation. So an inverse really truly is just that. It is the opposite of something else. When we talked about fact families, we talked about inverse operations. So when we look at 12 divided by 3 equals 4, we know that to undo that, we can multiply 3 times 4 to get 12. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. If we wanted to continue the fact family out, we could say 12 divided by 4 equals 3. And we could say 4 times 3 equals 12. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. Much the same, addition and subtraction are inverse operations. You can undo subtraction by doing addition, and you can undo addition by doing subtraction. All right. The next thing that we need to know is we need to know what equal means. Equal and fair do not always mean the same thing. But equal means literally identical in value or quantity. Identical in value or quantity. That means the same amount. Same amount for everybody. So again, if I have, let's say I have 12 candy bars. And actually, we'll just do 12 pieces of candy because I'm not going to have 12. Let's be real. I'm not going to have 12 candy bars. But I might have 12 pieces of candy. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you have to pretend like these are all the same size. Just, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So if I have 12 pieces of candy and I want to divide them equally between 3 people, then they're all going to be the same size and each person is going to get the same amount. So 12 divided into 3 groups means that everybody gets 4. And like I said, you have to pretend like they're all the same size. So it's the same value. It's the same quantity. Nobody gets more, nobody gets less. If we wanted to divide it by 3 or divide by 4, then we could make different groups and everybody would get 3. So on this one, 12 divided by 3 equals 4. There aren't any leftovers. Nobody's getting more than anybody else. Okay, I hope that helps with the vocabulary. So the next thing you need to know, and I'm going to give you some pre-teaching information, is there are certain symbols that mean divided by. So you're going to see different symbols that mean divided by. Okay, so you're going to see something that looks like this. It's a line that looks like a subtraction sign and 2 dots. So when we put this together with another number, we would do 6 divided by 2. And that's how we would read the number sentence. Okay, so that's one symbol that means divided by. Sometimes you'll see something that looks like this. It almost looks like a fraction. It's a little fraction sign. And so it might look like this, 6 divided by 2. We would still read that as 6 divided by 2, but this is another symbol that you might see. Another one is one that you may be familiar with, and that's going to be a little symbol that looks like this. Okay? When we do that, the 2 goes on the outside, and our 6 is going to go on the inside. 6 divided by 2. The number you are dividing is called the dividend. So the number being divided is called the dividend. The number that's doing the dividing is called the divisor. The number that's doing the dividing is called the divisor. And the answer to a division problem is called the quotient. So if we put equals 6, 6 divided by 2 does not equal 6. If we put 3, 3 would be our quotient. It's the answer. So let's look at another problem. Let's do 40 divided by 5 equals 8. This is just to help you get your vocabulary down. First of all, the way that we would read this is exactly how I told you. It's going to be 40 divided by 5 equals 8. $40 is our dividend. That's what's being divided. Our 5 is our divisor. It's what's doing the dividing. And our 8 is the quotient. It's the answer. If we know part of our equation, we can actually go in and figure out the rest of our equation. If we know multiplication, we can do multiplication to help us find the answer. So let's say we're not given a dividend. Let's say that we have blank, and usually it has a question mark here, divided by 6 equals 7. And you have to find this missing number. Well, the really cool thing is, if we know our fact families, we know that we can do 6 times 7. And once we figure out what 6 times 7 is, then we will know what goes in that box. Hopefully you guys know that 6 times 7 equals 42. So the dividend would be 42. So it's highly possible that they'll give you some of the equations necessary, but it means that you'll have to find a missing number in each of the equations. So this is where your fact families come in, and they are really, really important. So again, a fact family is a set of 4 equations that are related. They have the same 3 numbers. Fact family is a set of 4 equations using the same numbers. Now, when we went over this in class, some people had said, okay, well, 4 plus 3 is 7, so it must be related to 5 plus 2. Well, as nice as that is that they have the same value, you have to use the same numbers. So if I had 4 plus 3 equals 7, I'd have to have 3 plus 4 equals 7. All 3 numbers would have to be the same. The opposite of addition is subtraction, so that's the inverse. Remember, the inverse is the opposite of something. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. So we always start with the sum first. The sum was 7, and we're going to subtract 4, and that equals 3. And if we do the other way, we could do 7 minus 3 equals 4. Okay, so that's just a reminder of fact families. We do the same thing with multiplication and division. So let's say we decided, and I'm not going to use 4 and 3 because I don't want you to get confused. This is one fact family right here. Okay, so we're going to use a completely different fact family to show multiplication and division. So let's do 6 times 5 equals 30. We know that according to the properties of multiplication, we can do that. We can change the order. That's the commutative property. So we know that 5 times 6 equals 30. Then when we do our whole numbers, or I'm sorry, our quotient, when we do our quotient and we're trying to find out the division problem, we start with the product, which is 30. This becomes our dividend. And we're going to divide by 6, which equals 5. And we're going to take 30, and it becomes our dividend. And our divisor then becomes 5, and our quotient equals 6. This is a multiplication and division fact family. Two separate families. If you need more practice on that, make sure that you go in and try each one of the examples that are given in the lesson. Let me look and see if there's anything specific otherwise that I need to tell you. All right. Remember that in word problems, if we are dividing something equally or breaking something equally into parts, it's division. If we are putting things in equal groups and putting them together, it's multiplication. Basically, multiplication and division are a simplified way of breaking things apart into equal parts. For addition and subtraction, it just makes it so much easier when you're dealing with big numbers not to have to subtract. Like if you have 1,755, you don't have to go through and subtract 5 until you figure out how many 5s are in that. Okay? Let's see. I think that is it for that lesson. If you have questions, please come and see me.